Heidi. Once upon a time, in a town, there lived a very sweet little girl named Heidi. Heidi had lost her parents when she was a baby, so her aunt took care of her. Her aunt loved Heidi very much. She played games with her and sang lullabies. But when Heidi grew a little older, her aunt's job changed. She now had to work in a new and faraway city. And the place she worked was not suitable for children. Finally, she thought of Heidi's grandfather, who lived in the mountains. Her aunt thought that the old man who lived alone high up in the mountains could take good care of Heidi. Grandfather Alp was a grumpy man who lived alone in a small hut in the Alps. Even with some worries, she believed Heidi could be happy there, close to nature. So one morning, they got ready early and set off on a long journey together. The roads wound upwards, birds sang, and the wind rustled the leaves of the trees. Heidi didn't know where they were going, but she watched everything with curiosity, and it was clear she was enjoying the trip. At last, on top of the mountain, a small hut appeared. That was Grandfather Alp's home. Her aunt held Heidi's hand and led her to the hut. And so, Heidi's brand new adventure in the mountains began. Though living far from people and all alone, Grandfather Alp was secretly happy his granddaughter came, but he never showed it. Her aunt said goodbye to Heidi and left on her own journey. Grandfather prepared a nice bed in the attic for the sweet little girl. Heidi, who already loved her newly met grandfather, was very happy. That night, she felt for the first time what it was like to sleep under the stars. Her grandfather even told her that she should make a wish when a star fell. On her first night in the hut, Heidi wished wonderful things for all her loved ones. As soon as she opened her eyes in the morning, Heidi saw a huge furry thing and sat up in surprise. This soft, cuddly thing was her grandfather's loyal dog, Joseph. Seeing Joseph's sweet face and floppy ears, Heidi burst into laughter. The two became friends in the very first minute. Heidi followed Joseph, explored around the hut, ran away from bees, and played with butterflies. Soon, she got used to her grandfather's hut, the green mountains and the flowery hills. One day, on a walk, Heidi met Peter, the goatherd, on the slopes of the Alps. When Peter first saw the cheerful girl jumping in the fields, he could hardly believe his eyes. Is this a new little lamb or a fairy girl? He wondered. Heidi smiled so sweetly that Peter went to meet her right away. Since they were both children, they quickly became close friends. The next morning, as Peter went to graze his goats, Heidi happily followed him, saying, "I'm coming with you." On the mountain paths, the goats hopped around while Heidi kept running after Peter. Sometimes she tripped on stones and fell. Sometimes she shouted excitedly when she saw a squirrel. But most of all, she was amazed at how Peter talked to the goats. Peter explained to her how to walk in the mountains, when goats graze, and when they rest. Heidi learned so much about herding that she could almost manage her own flock. As they laughed and played in the mountains, time passed like water. All summer, Heidi ran and played in the meadows, but also helped her grandfather with housework. One of her favorite things was baking small breads in her grandfather's stone oven. She would take the bread she baked to Peter's old grandmother. and the grandmother would offer Heidi goat's milk. When summer ended and winter came, the mountains turned all white. When Peter started school, Heidi began to feel lonely. She was very sad because she couldn't go to school like Peter. Just then, her aunt returned to take Heidi to the city. She wanted Heidi to both work and go to school. At first, Grandfather Alp was very angry at this idea and didn't want to let her go. But after thinking, he agreed it would be better for Heidi to go to school in the city. Although Heidi didn't want to leave her grandfather, she agreed to go with her aunt, who promised she'd return soon. After a long train journey, her aunt and Heidi arrived at a big house in the city. Heidi met Clara, the little girl of the house. Clara had an accident when she was little, so she couldn't walk. Her aunt had actually brought Heidi to this house to be a friend to Clara. Clara and Heidi liked each other very much and became very good friends. Heidi, not knowing much about city life, often made funny mistakes that made Clara laugh. Clara's grandmother was a very strict and rule-loving woman. She tried to teach Heidi everything from how to sit and stand to how to hold a fork and knife at the table. Clara also helped Heidi learn to read and write. Although Heidi didn't feel very comfortable, she started dressing like the people in the city. Even though she had lovely days there, she missed her grandfather, Joseph, and the Green Mountains very much. In fact, this longing began to make her very sad. She became so sad that she couldn't even eat anymore. Clara's father and grandmother noticed Heidi's condition. After some time, they decided to send her back to her grandfather. This time, Clara was very sad because Heidi was leaving. But her grandmother comforted her, saying that loving someone means wanting them to be happy. At last, the day of farewell came. While saying goodbye, her aunt said that Clara would visit Heidi the following year. When she returned to her mountains, Heidi was overjoyed. First, she wanted to stop by Peter's house on the way. She gave the bread Clara had sent to the grandmother. She also took off her fancy clothes and left them there. Running home, Heidi hugged her grandfather tightly when she saw him. Joseph jumped on her and kept licking her face. After some time, Heidi received a letter saying that Clara would visit, and she was overjoyed. A few weeks later, when Clara arrived in the Alps, she loved it there. Heidi introduced her to Peter. Clara also liked Peter very much, but Peter was a little shy with her because a fear was growing inside him. What if Heidi loved Clara more? Or what if one day she left him and decided to live in the city again? But Heidi loved them both very much, and the days they spent together felt like a dream. The mountain air, the fresh goat's milk, and the soft bread did Clara a lot of good. But Peter had begun to be very jealous of Clara because of Heidi's friendship. He thought his special friendship with Heidi was changing because of Clara. Then his eyes fell on Clara's wheelchair. Inside he thought, if only this chair wasn't here, maybe everything would be easier. Without anyone seeing, he quietly pushed the chair to the side. The chair rolled down the cliff and broke into pieces. At that moment, a strange regret filled Peter's heart. Without her wheelchair, Clara was scared at first, but Heidi held her hand and gave her courage. Every morning, they went outside together. As the days passed, Clara's legs grew stronger and her breath became freer. One morning, Clara stood up and walked a few steps without Heidi's help. At that moment, she laughed with joy and hugged Heidi. "I owe this to you," she said. When her grandmother came to visit and saw Clara standing, she was filled with incredible joy. With tears in her eyes, she thanked Grandfather and Heidi. At that moment, Peter was deeply ashamed of what he had done. He confessed that he was the one who had pushed Clara's wheelchair down the slope. Realizing how wrong he had been, he apologized to everyone. Seeing his regret, Heidi and Clara forgave him, because true friendship could start again by admitting mistakes and giving a heartfelt apology. And the best part was that Clara could now walk. From that day on, the three became even closer friends. Their laughter spread through the mountains, their smiles blended with the wind. When Clara and her grandmother said goodbye, they promised to return next summer, because true friendships, once they begin, last forever.